Unfortunately, with the Saturday-Tuesday match schedule, I felt like we didn't have long enough time to really break down what could have been many headlines from that 4-0 win over Real Betis. Instead, Culés retreated to another 1-0 win, the 11th one of those this season, in what has felt like the same thing, rinse and repeat in 2023, with only really the 3 points to celebrate. So while I could have done 10 headlines for Betis, I barely got to 3 for Osasuna, but I say 5, and 5 means 5. So here they are, the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 1-0 win over Osasuna. Stakes for 1. Barcelona had some stakes in this match, and that was to continue playing well after Real Betis and to win the Liga trophy in some style, on the front foot and playing well, looking like you are the number 1 team in the Liga. For Osasuna, there were almost no stakes at all. They are on the precipice of falling out of the Europa League spot, and more importantly for them, though, is to win the Copa del Rey, which takes place on Saturday against Real Madrid. So you saw a second-string Osasuna side that, yeah, if they got a point at the Camp Nou, it would have been great. But the fight to get into the top 6 is going to have to take place for them in the last handful of matches for the rest of the season, because again, winning the Copa del Rey would be monumental for this club. A reminder, too, that even if he wasn't one of Osasuna's most important players, I think he probably would have been rotated anyway. But Abde was not going to be seen in this match because there was that clause in his loan contract that he can't play against his parent club. So unfortunate all around that Culé again didn't get to see him. But I would also rather have him rest to potentially be a difference maker against Real Madrid on the weekend. But again, once that match ended, I think almost every Culé is going to be rooting for Osasuna on Saturday. And a little bit of credit to Arrasate, because with the second string Osasuna, who don't have many reps together, he knew he had to make sure they defended like their lives, and maybe almost as a run out and a tryout for what might come against Real Madrid if the Los Blancos have so much of that possession. So what we saw from Osasuna was a low block, a 4-4-1-1 until their own box, and then it became a 6-3-1, really battening down the hatches. So how do you get behind a low block like that? It's either Rafinha over the top, Balde crossing or cutting in, Koundé overlapping, where he was offside early for that, and you work in the small spaces through the middle. Barcelona obliged by doing none of those 4 things at a high level, but showing you little moments where it seems like they could have broken through, and I think that is where so much of the frustration came in the first half. The ball was moving much too slowly, and it felt like Barcelona were kind of dragged into what Osasuna should have felt was second gear. Osasuna wasn't really giving everything they had in the first half, and Barcelona obliged and said, all right, we'll go at your speed. Headline 2 is De Jong showed up at least. De Jong was the man of the match for me. He was the one guy for Barcelona that showed up throughout the game. I could argue that Araujo too, but really De Jong was certainly fantastic in this match, while seemingly a lot of his other teammates were. And that is an odd thing too, because usually a midfield suffers together or plays well together, and while there were moments, but De Jong was the guy that I felt like if anything good was going to happen for Barcelona, it was going to happen at his feet. He was lively and a real difference maker from whistle to whistle, and it's incredible that we once went from saying that De Jong next to Busquets would never work over the last few seasons to now saying that they absolutely need each other, particularly to bring the best out of De Jong. There was a spell of 3 balls delivered by De Jong around the 22nd minute that, while it didn't lead to a goal, I felt like summed up and was enough for me to say it was a positive performance from him. 3 minutes after that 3-ball spell, he delivered the ball that led to the red card, denying a goal-scoring opportunity. Jorge Arando Aros, 22-year-old who was making his La Liga debut. Just a tough day at the office for him, and hopefully learning experience and it doesn't shoot his career sideways. There was another one a short while later from De Jong to Koundé, then another one from De Jong to Rafinha where he collided with the keeper, Eto Fernandez. Surprised it wasn't even a yellow for the keeper, but after giving the red, I think the ref had it in the back of his mind, as right or wrong as that might be, that he didn't want to hand out another card and put them down to 9 men, have to change the goalkeeper and all that stuff. But I don't know, a call needs to be a call, and VAR I guess thought it wasn't a big deal, so we move on. But I will reiterate again, it felt like in that first half especially, if anything good for Barcelona was going to come, it was going to come from the effort of Frenkie de Jong, who in that first half, the stats I think say the story as well as what we watched with our eyes. He was clearly not the problem here. Through 45 minutes he had completed the most passes. He had the most passes in the final third with 7. He was 5 of 5 accuracy on his long balls and 2 for 3 on his aerial duels, meaning he was winning the second ball. He was the one who was proactively trying to bring verticality to Barca's attack and trying to make a difference with the ball at his feet, also working hard to get that ball back. De Jong, excellent in this game. Headline 3, 11 didn't help. Unfortunately for Barcelona, that extra man after the red card occurred didn't really do much of anything, which is not a compliment to Barcelona. While De Jong was good, felt like everybody, it wasn't even that any individual played poorly that I could look at, where say the stats say, oh, you could see how bad it was, or the eye test says, oh, he needed to do something. It was, I felt like every player needed to do a little bit more than what they were doing. For Balde, his final ball just had to be a bit better. For Rafinha, those balls to him over the top had to be just a little bit closer. It was the right idea, but they were just too far out in front, and his runs were timed really, really well. As far as the width of the field, Rafinha and Koundé need to give me a bit more from the right coming inside. But also good for Osasuna. Unlike Barcelona, they did have some answers after the red card. Instead of defending in that 6-3-1 that we were talking about, they just kind of switched it to a 6-2-1. And because Barcelona couldn't figure out that 6 of the 6-2-1, wound up staying the same result for quite some time. They didn't really have to change too much of their defensive sets and the communication along that 6-person back line. Because Barcelona were their own worst enemy, though. A bit too slow vertically, and maybe conservative, a bit going horizontally. They were quick with the verticality, sure, but as I said, they just weren't good enough on those long balls with that verticality, or the finishing touch wasn't good enough. I think that even more so than the quality of the balls itself. And I'm not sure what Gabi could have actually done to change this as well. It's a question when he went out in the first half. Picked up the groin injury. That means that Xavi brought on Ansu Fati to basically play the same position because of Osasuna missing somebody already. And apparently Xavi waited until the red to have Ansu warm up, and he may have stuck with Gabi, which hopefully means that the injury isn't anything serious, but maybe Gabi at his age also wasn't being fully honest about how bad that injury might have been. We'll have to see after this game. And to talk briefly about Ansu, I'm not going to let him be the fall guy for this one. There were a ton of moments when Ansu Fati, not to say could have been a difference maker, but surely was as good as the rest of his forwards out there. In the first half, Rafinha delivered the ball to Ansu's head, but really good touch from Diego Moreno to knock it away. And there were other chances in the second half, and it wasn't just him. Ansu and Dembele had back-to-back misses. Ansu's into the keeper and Dembele missed at the ball on the half volley. Pedri had a rough miss. De Jong had a crazy miss that got me thinking and asking if there was a curse on Pedri getting an assist. And even there was a handball shot that probably could have been looked at a little bit longer. It was just building up to nothing working the right way for Barcelona. We've seen those games aplenty this season. Headline 4 is frontline fumbling. And it wasn't just Ansu, or Ferran Torres, or Pedri, or De Jong, or Dembele, or Rafinha. Lewandowski had another frustrating day at the office, mixing it up the back line of 6 and trying to drop in to link up. If it went wide, he got right back to mixing it up, and that certainly wasn't working for him. He had 30 touches in this game, but the majority of those came in the second half. To compare that to Betis, he had 47 touches. Even against Rayo, he had 41. The Getafe stinker, it was still 38. But at least he's not Jimmy Avila, who got all of 18 touches before subbing out. But again, those 30 touches for Lewandowski, pretty worrying because he needs to be around, especially if Barca have won a game, somewhere between 40 and 50 touches. And I'll reiterate that for the second straight game, I didn't think Rafinha was the problem, but logically, you get why he came out for Dembele. Dembele, in theory, could change the game on the right wing, but either he wasn't ready yet, match fit-wise, to be the difference maker, or more likely, he put up a stinker like the other forwards. But credit also goes to Aitor Fernandez. Sometimes you do have to compliment the opposition's goalkeeper. That yellow shirt he was wearing felt like he was much wider every time Barcelona was near the box for Osasuna, and you could feel his presence in the game. He was only credited for 3 saves, but if you were to count the number of times that he deflected a shot or closed out on a shot when he should have, his saves would have been much closer to 8 or 9 or 10 in that game. And headline 5 is finally the breakthrough. I know people are frustrated, but one of the headlines needs to be the goal that got Barcelona the 3 points that did they deserve from this match? I'm not sure. I think a draw was probably deserved from Osasuna's end. Working as hard as they did and having as much belief as they did over that second half, feeling like, hey, even with 10, we can play with this Barcelona side. But fortunately for Xavi, he made the right decision with the substitutes. Yeah, I had sent that Ansu and Dembele had their trouble in affecting the game. Yeah, that offside goal that was called off because Ferran Torres made a play on it when he was offside. But Jordi Alba, we wanted a difference maker, and he got the man of the match for the Liga. I mean, even the goal, not enough for me. It winds up being a fortunate goal for Jordi Alba. He winds up scuffing the shot, but it was a good build-up too. Lewandowski got wide to De Jong, who headed it down perfectly to Alba, who, as I said, scuffed the shot, but had enough spin to get past Aitor. A frustrating goal for Aitor to give up for him, but for Barcelona, it means they walk away with Ter Stegen grabbing clean sheet number 25 of the season, which last game, number 24, had already broken the record, so 25 just extends that streak. It makes it much harder for, what are we, season number 93 in the Liga, for him to break that record, and I think that record might stand for quite some time in the history books. And I'll close this one out by saying 11 1-0 wins for Barcelona. It has just felt like that kind of season. Does it diminish the Liga trophy? Again, that's an argument that we'll have on the podcast later in the week. But it's 3 points. It's a win against Osasuna. So good on them for playing as hard as they did. And I do hope this springboards Osasuna into winning the Copa del Rey. In the meantime, Barcelona have about a week and a half to reset, get Lamine Yamal some more time in training, try to figure something out for the last few games of the season, and hope that they earn that Liga trophy as much as they have so far this year with all those 1-0s. So again, that'll wrap it up. Until next time, Forza Barca.